Welcome to First Downs, Fourth Downs, and Touchdowns here. Today I'm going to be talking about another very talented division, the SEC East. Today we're going to be going over the record predictions and what I like about each team. At number 1, we have the Georgia Bulldogs going 11-1. They have a great head coach in Kirby Smart, who just got a $112.5 million 10-year contract. Obviously, he's going to be staying in Georgia for a long time. Now, they have a great defense, may I just say. Despite losing talents like Jordan Davis and Trayvon Walker, their defense is still stunner. Now, they do have a decent and mostly reliable QB in Stetson Bennett, but we have seen the weaknesses he can have during the season, including the SEC championship game against Alabama, but he is a proven quarterback nonetheless. Some star players include Brock Bowers, who has 56 catches for 13 TDs and 882 yards. He also ran a touchdown this season. During his true freshman year, of course. I think he could be a Heisman contender. We have Kelsey Ringo, who's a cornerback. Last year he had 34 tackles, 2 picks, 10 passes broken up, and he was only a freshman. Then we have Broderick Jones, an offensive tackle. Some experience last year. I think he'll have a breakout season this year. He definitely looks primed for that. Now, when I say 11-1, some people are confused about which loss that will be. Some might think Tennessee, they're second in the SEC East, they could win. Or Kentucky, they're a dark horse team. But excuse the bias here, this might be tad biased, but I have reasoning. I think South Carolina will upset them in week 3. Now, there's a reason. A few reasons, actually. First of all, we can't discredit South Carolina. They're a great rising team. Yes, they may be 4th in the SEC East right now, but obviously there's a reason. It's not just a hype train. They're getting better, way better. Just look at the transfer portal this year. Look at the recruiting classes. Look at what Shane Beamer's done. 7-6 in 2021 compared to 2-8 in 2020 under Will Muschamp, who of course got fired. Then again, it's early in the season. Usually teams don't have it down pat yet, and we will be primed up because in week 2 we will be going to Arkansas, to Fayetteville. So we'll be primed up with Georgia State as week 1, Arkansas in week 2, and Georgia in week 3. So of course both teams will be primed up. I believe Georgia has to play Oregon, so they're not exactly an easy team, but it's still very early in the season. Plus, we know Georgia can sometimes not do too well in Williams-Brice Stadium. I believe it was 2019. Let's say they lost to a way worse team, arguably. I believe they went 4-8 last year, or 4-8 in 2019. The Carolina Gamecocks did, and I think they still upset Georgia in overtime. So if they can do it then, I believe they could do it now. At number 2, we have Tennessee, who I think will go 9-3. They're a very amazing first year, absolutely stunning under Josh Heupel. They did better than Shane Beamer, and Shane Beamer did great. I'll give credit when credit's due. Tennessee did phenomenal last year. They have a top QB in Hendon Hooker, who I think will be a Heisman contender this year. He'd need about 1,000 more yards, and I'd say 5 to 10 more touchdowns. Keep the interceptions low like it was last year, and I think he could secure it. But last year, he had 2,945 yards for 31 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Now, we all know the Heisman is always about stats mostly, per se. So sometimes if you don't have the best receivers, that can hurt you. But there will be a great receiver I'll be talking about a little bit later from now. Now, because of their success, they have a great 2023 recruiting class. I believe they did just get a 4 or 5-star rushing edge. I don't remember his name, but I remember he actually picked Tennessee over Texas A&M and South Carolina. So that kind of hurt a little, but give credit. They got a good team. Now, here's the wide receiver I was talking about, who I think will have a breakout season this year. Wide receiver Cedric Tillman. Okay, 64 receptions for 1,081 yards, 12 touchdowns. With Velus Jones gone, he went off to the NFL draft. Cedric Tillman will be the star wide receiver. Now we have a defensive end who's a senior named Byron Young. Okay, he has 46 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 11.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, and 2 broken up passes last year. That's absolutely phenomenal. What can I say? That's just he'll be another key piece in the defensive line this year, despite the losses of Jordan Davis and Trayvon Walker. Jabari Smith at running back. Now, some people think he might be, how to put this? Yes, he might be overhyped, but I think Jabari Small is a very great running back. 140 attempts for 792 yards on 9 touchdowns. So I expect Tennessee to barely lose to Georgia. I expect it to be a field goal. Then again, Tennessee could beat Georgia, and South Carolina could lose. South Carolina could lose. It's flip or flop with each of those. But, as a Carolina fan, I kind of have to pick my home team. I'm trying to. Okay. However, there is some trouble right now legally. NCAA allegations. 18 recruiting allegations under former head coach and his staff, Jeremy Pruitt. Around $60,000 given to recruits by gifts, cash, etc. Very illegal, could cause some trouble for them in the future, but I guess we'll see. Okay. At number 3, we have, in my opinion, the SEC East dark horse of the year. Okay, it is Kentucky, going 8-4. Okay. Once again, definitely a dark horse team in the SEC East, and they could upset and win the East. I think it's going to be hard, but, they've had just successful season last year. I think they're on a rise, definitely, like a lot of teams in the SEC East. But I think they could. It's not always impossible, but I just don't think it'll happen this year. They have an elite quarterback in Will Levis, who I think could be a high 2023 draft pick, honestly, if he keeps up, gets a little better. Levis last year had 2,826 yards for 24 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Now, if you want to be a Heisman contender and get his draft stock up, he definitely want to up the touchdowns and lower the interceptions. But they do have a talented running back in Chris Rodriguez Jr. And he had 235 carries for 1,329 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. So that could explain the little bit of the deficit. But I still think Will Levis is a great quarterback in the SEC. If Kentucky wants to succeed, the time is now, I believe. In the past 5 years, I believe, they've gone 10-3 twice. Success is so close. They're almost there. They just have a few more steps they need to take. Some great players on that team include Tashawn Manning, who's offensive guard, team's greatest run blocker and likely a big prospect. Kentucky transfer from Virginia Tech wide receiver Tavion Robinson. Last season had 44 receptions for 559 yards, 5 touchdowns in last season. And then finally we have senior linebacker DeAndre Square, who had 40 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. Very impressive stats. Number 4. Good old favorite, South Carolina. Now, I think South Carolina, sadly, will go 7-5 this year, but it's not too sad. I'll get onto that later. I wish I could say they go 8-4 or 9-3, but I think that'll be for the years to come right now. Once again, successful first year under Shane Beamer. They went 2-8 in 2020. They're expected to win 3 games. I think that was like the betting odds in Vegas, but they ended up winning 7, including beating North Carolina and Duke's Mayo Bowl. It was an impressive win. They have elite transfer portal play, phenomenal, including Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma, Lavicia Carroll, Christian Beal-Smith from Wake Forest, Austin Stogner, my personal favorite. I think he'll really make this tight end room one of the best in the SEC, or the SEC East in general. Anton Wells and Devontae Reed. Of course, those are very impressive players. They've all done what they've done. I think Shane Beamer, with his culture there, can really solidify them into the team and make them do great things this year. Some great players, though, that aren't transfers include Zach Pickens, Jordan Birch, Josh Van. Van is the man. He was amazing last year. Jaheim Bell, one of the other tight ends. Marshawn Lloyd, my favorite running back. And Cam Smith, an all-SEC cornerback. Despite their rise in progress, once again, they'll go 7-5. And that reason, like I was talking about, is their schedule. They have hard road games against Kentucky, Clemson, and Arkansas. That gives them no favors there. And at home, they have Georgia. That is hard. Once again, defending national champions. I think they'll upset them. I think it'll be hard. And then they have Texas A&M. Now, some people think Texas A&M could be upsetted, but I just see it as completely unreasonable. Yeah, we have a bye week before, but guess what? They do too. Cancels it out. And before that bye week, they have Alabama. So either they win against Alabama, and they're on such a good mood that they beat us, or they lose to Bama and they come here mad after a week to practice against us. So I don't think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be one of the uglier games this year, but hopefully not. Some say Florida will finish over South Carolina this year, but I just don't see this, okay? I'm trying not to be biased, but I just really don't see this. Almost like LSU in my other video. Please check that out, SEC West Predictions. They have a first-year head coach in Billy Napier, and he's rebuilding during a vastly developing SEC East, okay? Georgia's the defending national champions. South Carolina's rising. Kentucky's rising. Tennessee's rising. Missouri's getting a tad better, and then Vanderbilt's just Vanderbilt. But I just don't see it. He's in almost the same situation as Brian Kelly, I could say, in a very vague analogy. Some people point out that their QB, Anthony Richardson, is talented. Last year he started in 8 games, had 529 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 5 picks. The stats alone tell you. Now, you don't believe me? You believe that's good compared to Carolina? South Carolina last year had 3 different quarterbacks: Luke Doty, Jason Brown, and Zeb Noland. As a Carolina fan, I can say it was an absolute mess. Zeb Noland actually came from South Dakota, I believe, South Dakota State, as a graduate assistant here. But when Luke Doty got injured, he was some shoulder pads were put on him, and he became a player. I thought he was going to fail, but he did way better than I expected, and I'm proud of him for it. Zeb Noland, who started 4 games at South Carolina last year, had 100 more yards, okay, 1 more touchdown, and 4 less interceptions than Anthony Richardson. That clearly shows Anthony Richardson, okay, he's been at Florida, started twice as many games as Zeb Noland, but way worse stats, okay? So despite the game being in Gainesville, Georgia, SC will pull it off. And South Carolina is looking for another bowl appearance this year. Many teams don't predict them to go over 7 wins, which I agree, 7-5. So I just hope they can make a good bowl game. Personally, I would love to see them go to maybe the Music City Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl, something like that, or the Independence Bowl. I think those are great bowls I'd love to see. And they went to finish off last year with Duke's Mayo Bowl against UNC and won 38-21. That's number 4, South Carolina Gamecocks. Number 5. I feel like I was just talking about them. Oh, that's because I was. Number 5, Florida. I think they'll be going 6-6 this year. First year head coach in Billy Napier. I think we've already talked about that. Lost tons of talent to the transfer portal. Okay, that had to hurt them. Returns an unreliable quarterback in Anthony Richardson. I just discussed that. But I will give this to Anthony Richardson. I'm not a hater on him. He is a great runner, rushing for 462 yards and 3 touchdowns for 58 attempts last year. He's definitely a very versatile quarterback. I think if he develops his passing skill and just overall becomes a better quarterback, his decision-making, I think he could be a great quarterback in the SEC East. They're attempting to rebuild, once again, one of my other points, during a rising SEC East. Once again, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, and then there's Missouri always being Missouri. You know, you can't always leave them out. Last year they beat us, they beat South Carolina, but I mean, we'll get on to them in a little bit. They host a good Utah team this year, as well as a rising South Carolina and Kentucky, which will no doubt be no easy wins. But we'll also have tough road games against Texas A&M, Georgia, Florida State, and Tennessee. I think Texas A&M and Georgia are obviously far superior to Florida. I think Tennessee is definitely superior to them by a good bit. And then, of course, you have to go to Florida State. And, of course, Florida State may be worse or better. I think they're around the same. I think I'd favor Florida. Say that 5 times fast. But Florida State, they're rivals. I mean, same state, they're rivals, ACC, SEC. So you can never know what happens. Some key players include Brenton Cox, a linebacker, who had 41 tackles last year with 8 sacks and 14.5 tackles for loss. You have Jason Marshall, who's a cornerback, 23 tackles, 1 interception, 3 broken up passes, and 2 tackles for loss last season. Pretty impressive numbers. And Justin Shorter, who is a wide receiver, 41 receptions, 50 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So that's Florida. I think they'll be going 6-6 this year. Number 6, Missouri. I think they'll be going 5-7 this year. There are many unknowns for Missouri this season, including the quarterback and running back. But the quarterback is more solid per se. I wrote that before SEC Media Day, so excuse me for that. Last year's starting quarterback transferred to Indiana. That definitely hurt their quarterback room. And then running back Tyler Brody was picked up in the NFL draft, I believe in the 6th round by the Baltimore Ravens, if I'm correct. In the past 2 seasons, they have finished 80th in pass efficiency and 85th in touchdown to intercept ratio, which was 1.65. Not very good offense pass-wise. And just 19.8% of Missouri's passes to receivers in the past 2 seasons have been 15-plus yards downfield, which is obviously, if they need to get the ball deep downfield, that will definitely be a problem with them. They have tons of experience returning up front with left tackle Javon Foster, right guard Connor Wood, left guard Xavier DeGata, and Luke Griffin competing for the left guard spot. So that will be a competition Missouri fans will definitely be looking at. They also have a new defensive coordinator, Blake Baker, who plans to run a 4-2-5 scheme, which I think it's okay. It's not my preferred scheme. Some interior defensive linemen, including senior tackle Darius Robinson and Rellis George Jr. I think they're very talented players. We have Florida transfer Tyron Hopper, who should boost the linebacker position, definitely. But then again, they have some very talented linebackers. Missouri they lose a defensive lineman, Maki Wingo, I believe that's how you pronounce it, who transferred to LSU. It's definitely got to hurt for them. Despite talented defensive players, the schedule will be too hard for them with road games to Kansas State, South Carolina, Auburn, and Florida, and Tennessee. They're very tough games. I think they could pull off Auburn or Kansas State, or maybe and Florida. Maybe Florida. No, I don't think Florida right now. I think they're just Missouri's a good team, but they're just not above Florida, even with the first-year head coach in the disaster. That's why I placed them 6. As well as home games against Georgia, Kentucky, and Arkansas. Once again, none of those are gimmies. They're very tough. Finally, to the last team, I think you can figure this out through the process of elimination. We have number 7, Vanderbilt. I think they'll be going 2-10. Clark Lee went 2-10 in his first season, and it's likely he'll be doing the same this year. Besides some talented linebackers like Anthony Orji, I hope I did not butcher his name. Sorry if I did. We had 92 tackles and 13 tackles for loss. And we have linebacker Kane Patterson, a transfer from Clemson. Once again, Clemson has stunning defensive players, so any transfer would obviously be great for the team that they're going to. Also, Arrington Truesdell, who's a linebacker, performed very well in spring practice. I think he could have a breakout season this year. Now, there was a quarterback battle between Mike Wright and Ken Seals. Wright seemed to have the edge in it, which we know now because of SEC Media Days. So I think Clark Lee did say Mike Wright is the starting quarterback now. So Mike Wright, as long as he develops his passing skill, with his mobility behind his terrible pass-protecting offensive line, I'm sorry, but it's just not good. And I think he could secure, throughout the season, secure that he's the quarterback for Vanderbilt. So maybe the other quarterback, I can't remember his name at the moment, will not replace him. Wright last year threw for 1,042 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Obviously, it's not too impressive, but then again, it's Vanderbilt. I'm trying not to be mean to them, but, I just don't know what to do. Like I said, SEC Media Days, Clark Lee named Mike Wright as the starting QB. The schedule is most likely too difficult for them to overcome, even with, I believe, the 3 easy give-me away games, or just easy games that they pay for. I think Hawaii will beat them, personally. which is sad because, I don't want to see fellow SEC members lose to other out-of-conference teams, but it just is what it is. They have tough road games at, once again, Hawaii, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, and Missouri. So Alabama and Georgia, the SEC champion competitors last year, definitely no favors there. And then they have some home games, including South Carolina, Ole Miss, Wake Forest, Florida, and Tennessee. Once again, the schedule is just very tough for them. So overall, number 1 will be Georgia, number 2 will be Tennessee, number 3 will be Kentucky, number 4 will be the South Carolina Gamecocks, number 5 will be Florida, number 6 will be Missouri, and number 7 will be Vanderbilt. That is my SEC East predictions for the 2022 upcoming season. This is first downs, fourth downs, and touchdowns. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell for more videos like this, and have a great day.